Grit. It defies gravity. It's about taking inventory of where you are today and where you want to go. Embrace change, make things possible, and reinvent your life. Call in with questions at 888-994-4995. Now, it's time to reinvent your life with Pamela Chanel.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Coast to Coast. I am Pamela Chanel David, coming to you from California with my guest today coming from the East Coast, from Florida. Very excited to welcome Natalia Levy to our Coast to Coast Connection show tonight. Natalia is a restaurateur. She is a chef. She is a TEDx speaker, and just such a pleasure, Natalia, to welcome you to our show tonight. So, how are you in Florida?
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Things are good. It's a little dark here already. The sun's set already, and I think we have a little bit of some storms brewing outside, but that's okay. We bring the sun inside.
Absolutely. And right now, where I am in California, we're in the middle of a heat wave. So we've got all the bases covered here. But such a pleasure to welcome you to the show, and for our listeners and for our viewers to hear about your life as a restaurateur, as a chef. Um, let's start with, at the root of it all, it's really about celebrating who you are and celebrating your talents and bringing those gifts to the world. So I'd love you to share a little bit about your background as we get started, and your road to what you're doing.
Well, yes. So I was born in Moscow, Russia. Spent my childhood in Moscow, spent my summers up until I was about 10 with my grandmother in the country. So we would eat everything fresh from the earth. So it was funny when I moved to the US when I was 21, and I see all those beautiful lawns everywhere. And it just kind of was strange for me that people didn't plant fruits and vegetables on the ground. So once I was in New York in 1999 is when I came, and I went to the culinary school in New York City, actually right after 9/11. So we had to wait. My school was downtown, so we had to wait for the dust to settle a little bit until it was safe for me to start school. So I went through Yale or culinary school there, and I ended up having an amazing internship with a celebrity chef, Laurent Tourondel, for about 6 weeks there. And then I did a second internship we had a corporate law firm, and we did breakfast and lunch for about 700 people. And I got hired off that job, and I only was able to work for about 2 months because I have pretty bad scoliosis. So standing on my feet all day was causing such significant pain that it was so bad that I would get nosebleeds. And in tears every day. And I just said to myself, I am so passionate about food, and I love the industry, but there was absolutely no way for me to continue at the pace that I was going without completely falling apart. And so I left that. I was able to, I was fortunate enough to just stay home and figure myself out. And my husband and I, we got pregnant. I had a baby in New York City, and then we moved to Florida. And about a decade ago is when I really started to get very interested in wellness and different aspects of wellness. And then 6 years ago, I became certified as a health coach, and then a nutritionist, and then published the book and gave a TEDx talk. And then 2.5 years, I came aboard full-time running our family restaurants. So sort of culinary industry, health and wellness, and then the restaurant industry pulled me back.
Beautiful. And so now you're back into an industry that you almost started with, where your passion started. I love hearing the stories of being with your grandma in Russia, being all about foods being so fresh. And that's obviously made such an incredible impact on you. And so to be back in that industry, I'm glad you're feeling better, to be able to do the work you do, which we'll hear about in a minute. But your passion for health and wellness. I know for myself, at the Reinvented Life, the basis of what I've done, what I've created, and continuing to create with the Reinvented Life was all about starting with health and wellness. So let's touch on
Mhm.
that today. You were obviously blessed to be raised with very fresh foods. You have an appreciation for what that is. And then life moved on. And I would imagine you were exposed to a lot of foods that weren't as fresh and really became aware of the toxicity and some of the other things that are around us. So, how did that shift for you? You were home, you were raising a family from the point of knowing and appreciating the freshness of the foods and then the impact that the foods made on our health.
Well, this is a terrific question. So, growing up with all the fresh stuff in the country, but in Moscow, so pretty much 3/4 of the year, the food was okay. There was a lot of processed ingredients, and I was having constant struggles with my stomach, and and then but I never, as a child, you never think, you just go through the flow. You don't have the knowledge or the education. It was, and even when I was pregnant in New York City, I would get all kinds of cravings. I mean, they knew me, they knew my order. I would walk into the Haagen-Dazs in New York City, and they knew exactly what I wanted there. So I didn't it didn't hit me until it hit me like a ton of bricks, until I just started to feel horrible. I would drive my daughter to school, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would start just either falling asleep and would have a, now I know that it's adrenal fatigue, and I didn't know how to manage my energy. I was having constant stomach issues, and that's when it really 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 clicked to really start to understand what we put in our body really affects how we feel in a massive way.
It makes so much sense. And so, when you think about the foods we eat, when you think about all the processed foods, when you think about all the foods that aren't as fresh and that do have toxins and do have pesticides and do have things that we then put in our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
no wonder that we spend literally sometimes decades. So the earlier that people can really find
Mm-hmm.
out about this correlation between what we're eating and how we're feeling, it makes so much logical sense. And for you, it sounds like it not only just affected how you were feeling, but it also affected your mindset about what you were doing in life. Share a little bit about that.
Oh, 100%. I am actually getting, on top of everything else that I'm doing, I'm getting certification as a gut health specialist. So I teach quite a few workshops with health and wellness professionals, with medical doctors. And the biggest thing that I say when it comes to gut health, you eat what your food eats. And so when you were talking about the antibiotics and pesticides, whatever we eat, we really have to pay a lot of attention to that. And then I think the biggest connection to the mindset came when I was doing a lot of research for my TEDx talk, which is the talk is the surprising connection between gut and happiness. So to be able to connect from the energetic point, from the biological point, from all the science perspective, there's so much data to to how the ingredients affect the state of our microbiome, and then how microbiome affects our decision making process, and that affects our mood and everything. So it's a big question to unpack.
And microbiome, it is such a relevant question today. At the Reinvented Life, and I point this out because there's a hummingbird. And there's a hummingbird for a reason, because oftentimes a hummingbird is analogous to life. We're moving forward. The hummingbird can also fly sideways, and the hummingbird can fly backwards. And so, what's beautiful about what you're saying is we can always repair. And that is one of the beautiful things that the hummingbird is significant and known for, is its ability to move all directions, to stay in perpetual motion. And we can repair our bodies. Having been on such a weight loss journey myself, I oftentimes think about that I've gained more than I've lost. It's been in the
Mhm.
knowledge of the whole realm of health and wellness. So I love what you're talking about, the correlation between gut and happiness. And I know that's really become your platform. How do you express that now? You're a restaurateur, you're running a family business, you're back to your roots as a chef. How are you bringing that happiness forward to your customers every day?
Oh, this is such a great question. So it was interesting because now that I'm back in the restaurant industry, I'm back from through the front of the house rather than the back of the house. I still do a little bit of the menu evaluation, suggest some recipes, maybe a special or two here and there. And then I do a lot of TV cooking segments. But to own a restaurant is a whole different world. And what we have been able to do is I look at it as a two-way system. Is I look at it, how can I bring wellness to our customers, because we have homemade pasta, we have a lot of seafood, there are some couple of fried things on the menu. However, what we have done is we have did a full evaluation of the menu, and we created a QR code that actually people that have dietary restrictions, they can point their phone to the QR code and scan that, and then it brings up the whole website where we did the full analysis of the menu, so that now can, if somebody is gluten free, if somebody is dairy free, if somebody is vegan, vegetarian, they know that they have options. And what also, there's an educational element to that, is they can uh, there's a note that if you want to make it vegan, how to tell the server what adjustments to make. So, and then also, because we have house-made pasta, it digests differently, but also if somebody doesn't want the carbs from the pasta, we have spiralized zucchini, and then we have all kinds of bowls with quinoa. So we have plenty of choices. So when I came in, that was very important for me to revamp the menu from that perspective, to give people more healthy choices. And even with our desserts, all of our desserts are shot glasses. So they're really teeny tiny portions rather than getting a huge piece of cake. And then the second part of it is because I've been studying a lot of mindset and wellness and mindfulness, I brought it in as a training for our teams. And mindfulness is a huge part of our company culture. And I took it even to the next level now. I've been writing this newsletter, especially during the pandemic, to our managers to sort of help them with a mindset. And so it's called Mindful Monday Minute. So it's a newsletter. It's now actually available to any restaurant owners, to anybody in the industry. So if you want my Monday musings and get a sort of a little bit of understanding of what we do and how we are able to cope with stress as a team, you can sign up at natalialevy.com. There's a link right on the front page of my website.
That's beautiful. So, literally, your contribution and your gift is so much more than just the actual serving of a plate of food. You're actually educating. Your incredible description of your menu is giving your patrons, is giving your customers options to really suit to what they are needing. It's wonderful. And educating, it sounds like, your teams that are running it. So, um, really a step forward and making the entire experience a very holistic, as you mentioned, mindful experience.
Well, I
And
think it's important. I think it's so important because when the customers come in, they don't just want food. I think we're beyond that of just grab and
yes.
go when somebody comes into the restaurant. So we try to make it we try to co-create an experience for them.
Yes, and the experience today. I mean, with everyone so preoccupied today of how life is shifting and where they're changing, it must be just so wonderful them to be able to step in and know they can step into a place, they can enjoy a meal, it's safe for them, it's agreeable to their gut, it's
Mm-hmm.
making them happy, which is really it's written all over you about just how happy you are to be working in your passion. So, when you went back to school and when you studied the integration between gut and health and the nutrition, did you have any one thing that really stood out from all of that experience for you?
Oh my gosh, from all of that experience. So there were quite a few. I really love the work of Dr. Jeffrey Bland, and he's one of the founder of integrative medicine and functional medicine and genomics specifically. So I really love what he said about the genes that we have, how we can, by changing our lifestyle and by changing what we eat and how what thoughts we think, is we can change. So we can change our genes, but we can change up to 80, maybe 90% of how our genes express themselves. So to me, that was mind blowing. And then also another big one for me is that the fact that between 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in the gut. So especially now, I don't know, I hear people, putting on COVID-19 or 20 pounds or something like that. And when that happens, I would like to invite people to really think about what are they putting in their body, and is it going to contribute to a better immune system as we're trying to, especially now we're going into the fall and the winter and the flu season. So just something to really consider about the immune system being in our gut.
It's beautiful. And I would imagine our viewers and our listeners would love to know, do you have any big tips? Do you have any one or two big tips that people should start with? Because nutrition is such a vast subject.
Oh, it is huge. I can talk about for days on end. So I think some of the very easy points is the easiest one is to evaluate what you eat and try to eat. And when you go to the grocery store, when you're looking at the packaged foods that you buy, look, just read the ingredients. That's the simplest place to start. You don't want to have buy foods that have just a lot of processed stuff, a lot of sugar, a lot of salt. Try to eat dishes with if as few ingredients as possible if you can at home. 70% of the plate should be vegetables, fruits and vegetables. We forget that, we were so trained to have that big chunk of protein and then a side of carb and then little itty bitty side of vegetables. No, how about you make that transition where there's a huge side of vegetables and then itty bitty side of protein and then itty bitty side of grain. So over the years that I have learned, I've studied. I don't believe in following a specific diet. I go on the rant. I think that a lot of people don't really understand why specific diets fit their specific body, because we all absorb things differently. We all come from, different age, different culture. There's so many different factors. I have a whole lecture on that. But if we can all follow the recommendations of a more plant-based and a Mediterranean approach, then that is something that I've been doing myself, if that helps.
Absolutely. I think that's what people want to know is where to start. And I know what's beautiful right now is there is such a resurgence of care about what we're doing, how we're treating ourselves. The subject you're talking about, which is mindfulness, which crosses all aspects of one's life. So today you can go in, you can find dairy substitutes, plant-based milks and creamers, and even cheeses, and really delicious products that are plant-based. And I think to really visualize what you're saying is so incredible. 70% of our plates should have fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. And that's where I think people have to really pay attention to what they're doing. I know shifting what I ate, how I ate, what I'm doing, it's constant state of reinvention. And now realizing that I want to have fruits and vegetables that are as fresh as possible and aren't sprayed and those types of things. I think it's a really important concept. I know we're going to have to wrap up here, but do you have one final word for our listeners in terms of this gut and happiness correlation?
Well, in listening to you say, you said something really, really important, and it's something that I really want the listeners to hear, is it's not just about what you eat, but it's about how you eat it. Because by the age of 20, most of us have had 22,000 meals. So now I'm 42. So I would have had, what, 40 something thousand meals. And
Wow.
if we were to look at every meal as an opportunity to give our body the ultimate nourishment that it needs, and really pay attention to eating, not in the state of stress, because let me tell you one thing. If we are stressed, our bodies cannot digest the food that we eat. So really being very, very mindful of how we eat it, paying attention to where the ingredients came from, and just eat from the state of, treat food as the highest source of self-love.
It's beautiful. There you have it. You can consider that 40 something thousand meals by the time you're 40. It's incredible. Thank you for joining us today on Coast to Coast. Could not think of a more important subject right now than properly nourishing yourself and maintaining the best happiness level through what you're eating. It is really, as you say, the highest form of self-love you can imagine. So thank you so much, Natalia, and we hope to have you back on Coast to Coast soon.
It would be such a pleasure. Thank you so much for today. You are an incredible host. I appreciate being able to have a conversation, being on the other side of the interview. It's refreshing. So thank you so much. You're wonderful.
Oh,
Thanks to everybody.
it's
for
my
tuning in.
pleasure. Absolutely. And thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our viewers. Hope you had a marvelous day here. Remember, you can do good things for yourself. Thousands and thousands, and you heard over a lifetime, tens of thousands of times. Thank you for joining us today at the Reinvented Life Coast to Coast Connections, California to the East Coast and back. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to The Reinvented Life with Pamela Chanel David. Tune in each week so we can work and grow together to become the best version of ourselves. Keep striving, keep dreaming, keep working, and embrace change. You may contact Pamela Chanel at info@thereinventedlife.com.